Welcome, everybody. We are trying different tech versions, camera, sound, no camera, no sound, high volume, AirPods, plug-in, all kind of different solutions. It's the first time that we're using this new software, and I'm saying we because I have a very special guest today with me for this episode. Um, he's a dear friend, a business partner of mine. We know each other for not so long, actually. It's just over a year now, but I feel like uh, we are so different people, but in a very interesting way. We have a very good connection and click, and I appreciate you a lot. I love working with you. It's always fun conversations with you. It's always very enriching, when you feel that you can spend a lot of time with people that are much smarter than you, and I always have that feeling with you. So um, the person with me today is Siwon, born in South Korea, living in Berlin, but has traveled the whole world essentially, worked in different regions for different kinds of projects in different institutions. But you will be sharing a bit more about this in a minute, I believe. So, for those of you who are not part of our business ecosystem and don't know who you are, maybe if you could give a quick or a long, however you feel like, introduction about who are you?
Okay. So for those of you who are watching, hello. Thanks for clicking on this video. Good to have you here. As a little audience in our, I guess, in our chat, rather intimate settings. So yeah, my name is Siwon Kim, born in South Korea. I grew up mainly in Australia and the US. I spent quite some time in the Middle East. And yeah, I'm more of what people these days would say, crypto native or Web3 expert. Just a few years ago, it would be called, somebody with a job that's not real. Just some guy who's scrolling on the internet, right? Get a real job. A lot of these descriptions would fit me back in the days. Yeah, actually, before coming to crypto, so my background actually is in politics. I worked with the U.S. State Department in the Middle East region for some time. Also briefly worked with the South Korean President's office for some time, and then kind of made my shift to business development and marketing, and then started working like full time in crypto since like let's say 2017, around the time of the ICO boom. So yeah, since then, have seen a lot of things come and go in crypto. Have seen a lot of people make a lot of money, a lot of people lose a lot of money as well. And yeah, just been part of the wave and trying to contribute the best way I can in this very delicate and now somewhat unmissable industry that is Web3/blockchain.
Amazing. But before we go into your crypto experience and expertise, how was it growing up in so many different regions? Because when I was younger, we tend to move a lot because my dad
Mhm.
was working in sales, so he was traveling from different regions to different regions, and we moved a lot until I was 5 years old. And then when we were five, my parents built our house, and then I used to grow up in one place. But the first 5 years, obviously, not very conscious about what's happening, but I felt like I was put in from group to group and
Mhm.
always finding new friends. And then later it was more stable. But how's that part for you?
I guess you learn to be a bit less attached to places or people. Um, in both good way and not so good way. In a good way that you are able to live anywhere and thrive anywhere. They could throw you in the middle of nowhere or right in the middle of like a concrete jungle, and that you would feel exactly the same. In a bad way where you don't really feel like you belong in a certain group. And I guess when I was younger, I did struggle quite a bit with that, where do I belong? And I don't necessarily fit in any of these groups. So maintaining like a large network of like intimate friends was always a challenge for me. I still a challenge for me, to be honest. Um, but I think it also gives you a bit of like a unique ability to be able to relate with people. You learn to relate with almost everyone in very, very different aspects because you do realize that people aren't just, one-sided. You don't have just one single characteristic that defines you. You can be, different person depending on who you are, sorry, who you meet or where you are, things like that. Um, so yeah, I guess that's kind of how it affected me.
And how long did you spend in these places? How long have you been in Australia and the US and then in the Middle East? Give us the timeline maybe a bit.
Australia, I was quite young, so this was the time when I was like in primary school. And then I spent so middle school and high school in the US. Like small portion of high school, I did go back to Korea for like 2 years, and then university times I went back to the US, and then after that I spent 2 years in the Middle East, and then now I moved to Berlin in 2015, I think. So now it's been what almost 9 years almost.
You get really sucked into Berlin, huh? Like I remember when I when I moved to Berlin in 2015, I thought, yeah, I'll stay there for 2 3 years. Boom,
Mhm.
snap of the finger, 6 years are gone, and you're like, wow, this time flies, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's kind of one of those things where like it's also a city where it's so difficult to settle in. It was at least the case for me, because but also I didn't know any single person in Germany, and it was a whole new experience for me. And I think it took me like around 2 years to like actually feel somewhat settled in, not like socially speaking or anything, like basically got all the paperwork in order, like German bureaucracy and all that. Um, and when you spend such effort to make somewhere somewhat livable for you, you kind of want to make the most of it, right? And then, years go by, and then suddenly, I'm here for almost 10 years, and it doesn't even feel like that, to be honest.
But
But yeah.
Why Germany initially?
Why Germany? So it's actually more of uh it wasn't a choice that I actually fully intended. So back when I was in Qatar, so before working in the U.S. Embassy, I also like studied Middle Eastern politics. So this is why I went to the Middle East to study their politics in that region. And I was actually studying under the Qatari government sponsorship. So they give like scholarships to different international students to come and study and live and potentially work there. And then, strangely, that was also the time when Qatar won the bid for the World Cup, right? That just recently happened. Um, and then, so now suddenly they had to build a lot of stadiums, I guess. And I saw a lot of my friends getting their sponsorships and scholarships canceled overnight. So this wasn't, a very stable time if you were relying on the sponsorship of the government to continue your studies. So I said, okay, well, studying in the American system, especially, I mean, Australian one as well, but American one even more so, is quite costly. I wanted to continue my higher education in places where I don't have to be worried about paying for it. And Germany with its like public universities in Germany are mostly free. So this is kind of one of the reasons that attracted me to Germany. Sander, I applied to many places to be honest for university, and I applied for universities in France, in the Netherlands, and then Germany, and I just happened to get accepted to a few universities in Germany, and that's why I ended up here, to be honest. So yeah, it was like it wasn't some holy German like voices in my head telling me like come to Germany. It wasn't like that. It was just a purely logical financial choice, but the one that I'm glad that I have made.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that Berlin is typically German. That is
Yeah,
another
true.
thing. You know, like when people ask me what's my favorite city in Germany, I say Berlin, but Berlin is not Germany. Berlin is so international, so multicultural. Berlin with its different districts. When you go from one district to the other, you feel like you're in a different city. It's completely
Yeah.
different people. Um, I When I moved to Berlin, I was lucky. You know, I moved into an apartment, um, and there was like I think 6 floors in the whole house, and on every floor there were only students, and they were
Mhm.
connected with each other. They met each other um, uh, like around the apartments, and they had like I don't know the English word Innenhof. What is that? The inside
Oh,
place.
I
Good that I'm
I
asking.
exactly know what you're talking about, but I don't know the English words like the inner courtyard, maybe?
In a courtyard inside of
Yeah.
a building. Yeah. Anyway, so and there they always met. So when I moved there were immediately 15 young people sitting, and I could connect very easily. But um, for example, my sister, she moved to Berlin during COVID, and
Mm,
for her it was also very difficult to find people to connect with, because where are you going at that time? And I can imagine if you come to Germany by yourself, not having a lot of contacts there to find people that are like-minded to hang out with, have fun, do some sports, or do something else,
yeah.
is definitely challenging.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, but I always tend to believe that you tend to celebrate the success of something more if you face more challenges trying to achieve it, right? It's
Very,
just so
very
much more
well said.
worth it. Yeah.
Very well said. So you came from a very educational background, and for example, I know with in different cultures, being raised is obviously a completely different story. Like the Korean, Asian culture is different than German or Middle East one. So
Hmm.
I had a lot of freedom when I was younger, in terms of the choice in which direction I want to go in my career. How was it for you? How was it with family? Did they have a plan for you to say, okay, Siwon, you become a doctor, or you study well, and then I don't know, how was that in terms of family peer pressure?
Yeah. I mean, I think I am one of the more lucky ones because my parents didn't exactly have um like a set path for me, right? Um, and I think like I really appreciate that. Ever since I was young, my parents didn't want me to be tied down by, one sort of institutional teaching. They wanted me to have access and exposure to as many different schools of thoughts as possible, different frameworks, different institutions. But it was never like, oh, just do whatever you want. It was basically, um, you can be whoever you want and whatever you want to be, but you still have to be the best person at it, right? You want to be, uh, most Asian parents are like, oh, you must be a doctor or a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. My parents would be like, oh, you want to be a musician, a professional musician. Okay, but you better be the freaking best musician that ever existed. You must learn how to put like Kanye West to shame.
You're
Uh,
allowed to curse. You're allowed to curse.
okay,
No need
I
to
curse a
censor.
lot, so that's fine. Um, so I think it did have an impact on me, because if my parents always did it in a way where if I like something, if I showed like if I was able to entertain myself with something, then they would say, okay, he likes it, and therefore my parents, of course, wanted me to make a living out of things that I like. But it also had this sort of it's a double-edged sword, whereas then I'm expected to be extremely good at the things that I like, and if I'm not good in it, I don't like it anymore. Um, and yeah, I mean, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. I just right now I love what I do, and I think
And
it's
you're
maybe a
really good at
sign.
it.
Yeah,
You
maybe
are
it's a
really.
sign that I'm good at it as well. Who knows? Maybe one day I won't be good at it anyway, and I'll be like, you know, I'm out of here. So far hasn't happened. So yeah.
But what did you enjoy doing when you were younger, outside of
Oh,
gaming? I heard that.
the national sport of Koreans. Um, I like many things to be honest. Like I mean, uh, you know, all kids, I was fascinated by like dinosaurs and insects, right? Uh, but I think when I was a bit, like around, let's say like middle school, high school, I was really into music. So I played the cello for, ever since I was like in first grade in primary school, and I still play sometimes. Um, so music was a big part of um my upbringing. Um, and then other than that, I love to play football, rugby. Growing up in Australia, you kind of have to play rugby, things like that. So yeah.
Were you good at rugby?
I was fast. And I have like very strangely well developed like leg muscles. So I was good at kicking the ball far. Um, so yeah. But other than
Because
that, was I good at it? I don't know. I mean, of course, there were kids who were much bigger than me, but yeah.
because for those of you who have never met Siwon in person, let's say he's not the tallest. Like he has the biggest heart, but not the longest legs, I would say. So I can.
Look, it's sometimes like a chihuahua, they may be short but full of character. So yeah. But
uh,
I would say average when I go to Korea. So I like going to Korea. I feel less short.
yeah. No, I also have a little side story in terms of music. My parents wanted me to try out different things. So I I don't know how we got there, but I started playing like flute, not this like flute to the side, but the one straight, for lack of better words.
Like
And
the medieval ones.
no, the like the wooden flute that you play. You know,
Ah,
it's Blockflöte in German. I don't know for lack of better words to how to describe it. But I had this teacher, and she was so music. She was like in her mid 50s initially, and I was part of the group. And sometimes I just skipped, and then I went to the supermarket with my €2 and wanted to buy some sweets, and then suddenly my mom walked around the corner in the same supermarket. I
mhm,
think she never knew. She never knows. Maybe she'll find out by this story. I was hiding then behind the supermarket thing to not be caught by her, because I was supposed to be at the flute music lesson. I'm not good. I cannot sing. I don't. I would love to learn how to play guitar, but you know how it is. You don't have time for everything, and then
yeah.
you're interested.
Especially when you have to go to the supermarket to get some snacks.
But that was years and years ago. But okay, then you come from a background where you had a lot of freedom in exploring what you want to do, but when you do it right, do it correct, like
Yeah.
become the best at it. How did you get into crypto? And before we go there, maybe you can answer one question, which
Hmm.
is, what is crypto even? Because a lot of people, they will just stumble across this video and be like, is this Bitcoin? Is crypto Bitcoin? Or
Hmm.
what is that? Like, let's start from the very beginning and then how you got into it.
Ah, sure. Oh, what is crypto? Ah, jeez. I guess in my explanation would be crypto as a technology. It's a way of us transferring and keeping information away from central bodies. And it results in greater transparency and fairness and equality in how information is stored and transferred and interpreted. One example that I always like to have is that, let's say that two people come to an agreement, and, whereas, person A needs to pay something to person B, let's just say like that. If only those two people know about this contract or this agreement, and one day if person A says, no, I never agreed on it, then it's a 50-50, right? You either have to take person A's word or person B's word, right? But if you have a witness, person C, then, it's basically one versus two. And if you have person D, person E, person F, then that information, that agreement is now more enforceable. So, the nature of the agreement that comes at a certain time, it is stored in a way where it is difficult to sort of say, okay, this is not true, right? And it's the same thing for the way that we store digital information. And this is why blockchain technology allows for this decentralized ledger, right? It's a decentralized way of keeping informations and records so that we are safer from censorship, we are safer from attacks and hackings, and therefore it's a new wave of, I would say, like the internet, right? This is why we call it the Web3, compared to our current internet, the next generation of the internet, where it is crowdsourced, crowd controlled, and democratically governed. And crypto, in my opinion, comes in a way where you have to, when a person, let's say in the previous example, like person Z at this case, why should this person care to keep informations and records about some agreement between two people that he doesn't know? He has no interest in this. But if you reward them for their efforts of keeping that record, then they are incentivized to participate in this ecosystem. And this is why you reward them with cryptocurrency, because you can reward them with dollars or euros or whatever, but dollars and euros are issued by governments, and governments can therefore say, no, this person is, not trustworthy, not reliable. Me as a government has decided, then this person would not get rewarded. So therefore, cryptocurrency breaks away from the central body as well, so that, no matter what a government might say, or a bank might say, you get rewarded through that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Let's dive right into this after hearing how you got to this, because now we can go full nerd for the next 1 hour and really deep dive into every single bit and piece around it. But how was your first interaction with blockchain technology or cryptocurrencies? How did it pique your interest? How was your first interaction, and how was the process there? Uh, if if you start, like, where was the first interaction, and how did you get to where you are right now, what you're doing?
hmm the first interaction with Bitcoin for me was in 2013. Um, and like I call it interaction, but I wasn't really trading or anything. I mean, I don't think there even was an exchange where you could trade. Like people say it existed, but like most of the exchanges existed back then were like really shady, and with terrible websites.
What
So
is
my
what
first,
is I'll jump in every now and then, because
yeah.
you're so much into it. I think I need to break it down sometimes and ask what the meaning of certain words are, just to make it really understandable. What is an
Mhm.
exchange?
It's basically an online platform, usually websites where you can buy and sell or trade, assets, right? So in this case, Bitcoin.
Okay,
So,
for
like
fiat
Binance,
currency,
Coinbase, people know it these days.
and you can deposit euros and dollars, so fiat money, and you get cryptocurrencies in return. Or you
Yeah,
can then
yeah,
on the platform trade also different tokens and cryptocurrencies. Just that
yeah,
we're
exactly.
okay. So there were a lot of exchanges back then in 2013 that were shady.
Yeah, I
Please.
mean, like most people didn't use them. So yeah, this is why sometimes these days I see like exchanges saying, "Oh, we existed since 2013," and I'm like, I don't think so. But so back then what I did was, I took an interest in because the first time I ran into Bitcoin was on a forum. And then I took an interest in what it is and how it can be used. And a lot of the times back then it was either used to, you know, buy or sell um, anything on the open market. Of course, you know, the dark net kind of being like weapons and drugs and all these things. But also the lighter side was, you could actually use it to buy like cheaper textbooks, discount textbooks. And as a university student back then, this was like a huge thing. Back then, textbooks cost like $300. And if I could pay like $10 worth of Bitcoin to get this textbook PDF, why not? It's a great deal, right? Um, and but you have to like go to 7-Eleven, get gift card, and then like scratch it off, and then talk to some, random guy online who might be a scammer or not, you never know. And then tell them the gift card code, and he would take like 20% commission and give you the rest in Bitcoin. So this is was my first interaction. But I wasn't, to be honest, like really interested in the technology side of things. I was just, oh, it's like an online payment method almost, right? Um, and then time sort of passes by, and in 2016/2017 was kind of the time when a lot of more interest came into crypto, right? A lot of retail interest, some news outlets were mentioning it. And this is the time when I realized, oh, okay, it's kind of maybe a trend. And I started to read up on it. And then in 2017 slash going into 2018 was my first sort of full-time exposure where I started working actually for a venture capital. So that VC at the time was investing quite heavily into different cryptocurrency projects. And that's was actually my very first intro to the whole blockchain world through the lens of venture capital, which of course gave me the freedom to look into many different projects, and I was able to have that initial exposure to wide range of projects and knowledge, I think.
And what did you do at the VC back then? Were you analyzing different investment opportunities where the VC could join and participate in, or what were you doing there?
So my I still remember my very first task was the VC was opening some kind of a hackathon to attract different projects and developers. So my very first task was, okay, look into different projects, see which ones could be suitable for us to invite to participate in this hackathon, and then essentially get them to come and participate, right? So that was my very first task. And then after that, it was mainly um, looking into not about investments per se, but it was about looking into different projects where you could potentially forge a relationship. Because I think, and it still goes the same now. I mean, there was a bit different time in between, but before you go into investments, it's really about building relationships, right? And then you want to potentially get investment from an entity or a person that you already know, because you know that this money comes with a certain character. So that was kind of the time as well back then when you first build relationship and then you talk about investments. So my job back then was to see, okay, who are some of our potential targets to build relationships?
I think that's a very valuable lesson there to see that money is also to a large degree trust and comes through relationships, because when you get into different realms, suddenly money is not the issue anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly you need to check and verify, where's all that money coming from? Is it made in an ethical way? Does it come from cross border? Did it came through money laundering? Was there any criminal activities connected to the funds, where they were coming from? And if you have a trusted source that you know for years, where you know their business, where you know the people, they have a good track record, that is really valuable to nurture this relationship, because you know you can build on top of that. And there's so much flashy money out there,
Yeah,
also to a large degree in crypto, but to find the credible people with the right ethics and morals and good intentions, it is difficult, and it requires, as you say, a lot of relationship building and understanding, testing, checking, is this person like really who they say they are? So I think you got a very great way of being exposed to an industry while learning the also like to a large degree the most important fundamentals of money in parallel.
Mhm.
How important was, before we go back to the crypto side, how important was being part of this VC and having people where you can learn from? Like, who did you have mentors in your in this company? Who did you learn from?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I had a mentor, but her relation, like the relationship between me and her, kind of, I've it takes a very strange turn. Mainly because when I was working the VC back then, she was my direct supervisor, right? And she was also the one of the top managers of the VC. She honestly did not have much time for me, because she always had to travel. She had meetings. She was outside, traveling outside of Germany most of the times. So a lot of the times it was me sitting in the office thinking, what the actual fuck am I supposed to do right now? Yeah, I was so lost because, you have so much reading materials and all the projects have different verticals, that you have to somehow have at least some kind of understanding in order to actually understand what they're doing, right? Um, so I was more like thrown in the deep end and expected to swim. Um, and I did manage to swim. Um, and so I think I learned a lot by doing. And this is why I think until this day, a lot of my understanding, and belief within the blockchain and crypto side it's more action driven. It's more, something that I learned by experience and, trying to do something with it rather than reading about it and researching about it. But of course, the woman, and after this is after I kind of left the VC and then joined other projects to work with, she and I kept in contact. And throughout, our years of knowing each other, I, of course, no longer saw her as a big authority figure, and not as one of the top managers of one of the largest VCs in the industry, but as a human. And I think she also saw how I was quickly growing and, getting a lot of knowledge within the industry. And then I think after a certain point in time, we were able to talk more on the same level. And now, she is, of course, a mentor, but also a, very good friend.
You know what is so beautiful to see with you is to you can really feel that you enjoy what you're doing. And
I do.
speaking of Germany, I think a lot of people are lacking this, unfortunately, because we tend to start an apprenticeship or go to university because we don't know what else to do, you know?
Hmm.
And to see how you have fought your way through from studying in different continents, even to come into a city alone with not a lot of contacts, more accidentally slipping into an industry that you didn't know, but you knew how to fight your way through to eventually finding your passion on the other side. And that is now, I feel like, very rewarding for you. And to see you so joyful about certain things. I know, like a lot of people, if they speak on a technical level with you, it, you lose them because you're so smart and intelligent and knowledgeable about what you're doing. But what is the most beautiful thing to see is, and I think that connects actually people who are really passionate about it. You see their excitement uh,
Hmm.
in their faces, in the way they talk. That is so enriching, and I admire that really a lot about you. And I love seeing how much joy you have in doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. But I think, it goes back to what I said that, the things that you gain through a lot of challenges tend to be more meaningful. And, I had my fair share of challenges and a lot of challenges, over many, many years. But it's also part of the reason that I just can never leave the industry or hate it, um, because you just learn to love it as much as it hurts you. It could hurt you many, many times over, but it will always end up in a form of love, I think.
Can you share maybe one or two of the biggest learnings and challenges that you had? Obviously, we had longer conversations in person, and I know that some of the challenges cannot be shared publicly. But maybe there's one or two that you can share, because sometimes, especially on social media, you tend to see the results, but you're
Yeah.
not part of the process, So probably in the time where you had these challenges, there was nobody on your side with a camera and like asking you like what's going on at the moment. They see now the final result of this
Yeah.
person who you are today, but what was one or two challenges that you've had?
Um, I think my maybe the second biggest challenge I had it didn't really originate from anywhere, it was just the whole ups and downs of the market. And, when the crypto market takes a downturn, it really takes you for a really wild ride. And, you tend to have fears, even if you believe in the technical side of an industry. Like I believe in the potential of blockchain technology, but I also understand that in order for some technology to become an industry, you need massive amounts of money to make something an industry. Um, and when that money is leaving because the market is not doing so well, for example, when um, the most current example, I guess, was back a few years back when BTC went to like $3,600 from having you know I mean now the numbers are kind of but from like 40,000 until less than 4,000. It does put you in a certain mindset where you are a bit afraid of what you're going to be able to do, right? Because I think a lot of people who may have had some experience working in crypto and blockchain tend to have less than 2 years of experience, because after a certain time, usually around 2 year mark, you really have to make a decision. You say, okay, I'm gonna stay and make the most out of my career in crypto and blockchain or not. But if you do decide to stay, it really completely shatters your previous mindset. You can never go back. So I know that I'm completely broken and shattered enough to be not able to go back to any other industry. And when that industry is taking a huge downturn, it's not about, am I going to have a job or am I going to have enough money? It's about, what am I going to do? What is the purpose of my professional life, right? Um, so that was one of the most difficult challenges that I had. And then the other one, I guess, was more of when there is that negative, I guess, financial outcome in the market, there is also a lot of negative sentiment within the market. And when there is negative sentiment, people tend to look for other people to blame. You never blame yourself. You always blame other people, right? Well, at least most people do. And being one of the people that other people point and blame, even though I have not done anything, right? I have not recommended them to, trade a certain token. I barely even talk with them. I'm just a proponent of what I believe in, right? And sort of whether that is financial aspect or technology aspect, I say what I believe in, and I never would, do things just for the sake of promotion. But when people sort of misunderstand you and blame you, um, and say harsh words, okay, quite challenging. But when that leads to, I had people stalk me online, I had people stalking me offline. I received many, many death threats. Uh, and, um, death threats from my family, for example. Some people even like reported me to the police for whatever reason, saying like, oh, because of this person, I lost so much money. I'm like, okay, but I don't even know who you are. And of course, you know, I'm still here, which means of course, the police didn't file any charges on me. But the fact that I had to even be interrogated by the police for something that I didn't do, and the fact that during those times, almost nobody is willing to listen to you. I think this is one of the it was the most challenging part, and then even talking about it kind of gives me a little pain because I think a lot of people in crypto do things wrong, and that's for 100% true.
Yeah.
But also there are a lot of people who do things right. But quite often it feels like those people who do it wrong tend to get all the fame, and those people who do it wrong tend to get all the blame. Um, and so being on the receiving end of the blame is quite challenging because, I would like to think that I'm fighting the good fight. I still do think I fight the good fight. But sometimes people don't think that. So
Yeah, I think it's oftentimes also because people, as you said, they don't know you. If they would do, if they would have spent like or shared the dinner with you or uh, spent a longer time with you, I think the truth unveils only over time. And trust is built by doing what you say you're going to do over the longest period of time possible.
mhm.
And I think if you're, and I've experienced you that way as a very ethical and moral person, you have a lot of incredible skill sets that can be used for the right and for the wrong. I sometimes say you're a bit of Severus Snape. You can do black magic, but you use it for the right side. but but the thing is, um, as it is 100% as you say, people don't look in the mirror, and when it comes to money, people tend to be very emotional because they don't have rules in place, they don't have
Yeah,
guidelines in place, they don't have principles in place. So when markets is going up and people get to the position where they turn very greedy and they make non rational decisions, and then suddenly the market turns and they were not prepared for it, they need to find somebody who's there to be blamed,
yeah,
and it's easier to point fingers at somebody else than looking to the person in the mirror. And I think these challenges have brought you even closer to who you are, made you more mature. Um, Also to be more conscious and aware of who you want to deal with. And it's also an unfortunate reality that the more money is involved,
mhm,
the more it also attracts, let's say, the other side of the coin, and to find good people in business is really difficult. It's very difficult.
100%. Yeah,
And every person who has a financial success or a large corporation, for sure, for a fact, they have gone through a lot of shit. They've gone through hardship, they've gone through backstabbing, they've gone through people that were stealing from them. Um, but to see you being in the position where you are today, uh, believing in doing the right things, staying true to yourself is a testament to your character, and I can only applaud you for this. And I wish everybody who's listening to get the chance to meet you eventually, maybe at an event or in person somewhere one day, because you're really a very inspiring and incredible person. But
thank you very much. Too kind.
let's continue with some more nerd stuff. Um, so
Yes.
um, you've explained what blockchain is, and Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency based on blockchain technology, but a lot of people don't understand the difference. Um, what is it? What's the difference between a cryptocurrency and blockchain technology?
Uh, Cryptocurrency is exactly how the name says, right? It's a currency, which means it's a um, tokenized asset, right? That the crypto, so the cryptography side of things decide to put a certain value to it, right? So cryptocurrency, if you just take currency for example, let's take euros for example, right? If you have a euro, usually the European Central Bank prints the euros, and the global financial market dictates how much is this euro worth relative to dollars, Japanese yen, things like that. But cryptocurrency is usually a system where the currency is issued by the cryptocurrency project, and the cryptography side or the overall crypto market essentially dictates what that value is relative to other assets such as Ethereum, Bitcoin. So that is what cryptocurrency is. And blockchain technology is essentially what is able to determine how, on a very, very basic level, even if it's not serving any other purpose, how much of this cryptocurrency do you have in your wallet, right? In your account. So for example, let's say that you have, I don't know, 50,000 euros in your bank account in name of German bank, Deutsche Bank, whatever, right? The currency is euros, and the system is Deutsche Bank sort of the framework, but also the international banking framework that tells you that agrees that, okay, you have 50,000 euros in bank account. In cryptocurrency and blockchain, you may have 50,000, tokens, and blockchain is a technology that makes the entire system agree that you have 50,000 tokens, right? And this is why it is just so this, when what I talked about before about this decentralization is very, very important because, maybe some people had this instance. I definitely had very, very recently as well, where a bank tells you you're not going to do business with you anymore, right? You can either move all your funds away or we'll just wipe it. And the banks have the authority to do that because your account is fully controlled by the bank. But in cryptocurrency and blockchain, because blockchain doesn't have a central body, it's a bunch of peoples and computers and machines agreeing via an algorithm. No central body or no single person can tell you, actually, you don't have 50,000 tokens, Tom. You only have 10,000 tokens. This cannot happen. So this is maybe a better understanding for those who are watching of what's the difference between cryptocurrency and blockchain.
But to play devil's advocate here, if there's no framework around it, can it not be used by a lot of criminals for the wrong purposes?
Yeah, sure. But to play a devil's advocate on the devil's advocate, uh, when police raids, mafias and cartels, and professional criminal rings, they don't really find crypto, right? They usually find euros, stashes of dollars. So I don't think a lot of criminals are using crypto as much as they're using cash. Um, and I think mainly that's because when you're using crypto, the blockchain records every single transactions and actions that you do for everyone to see. But with cash, you could pay anyone with cash, and then if no one saw it, did it really happen, right? So I think it is more difficult to follow a trail of cash than it is to follow a trail of Bitcoin, for example. You can
Can you
always, yes,
can you
sorry, Tom.
speak? Sorry for jumping in. Can you speak about an experience uh, to whatever extent you can and you want, um, where you follow trails in order to understand certain behavior and patterns for different kinds of people on the blockchain? Can you elaborate more on certain things there?
Yeah, sure. Uh, I cannot name the entity or the country or the person. Um, but sometimes what I do is, especially when there's a new cryptocurrency launched, and they have recently just been started trading on the market, I like to follow where the money is going, right? Who are the largest wallets or accounts that have the largest amount of this token, and where did they get it? Where is it going? In what format? In what characteristic is it going? Right? Is it going from account 1 to 2, or is it going from account 1 to account 3 and then 2? So there's like a little redirect. And these kind of behavior patterns is what I like to see and say, okay, everything looks normal, or if not, something feels wrong. And when something feels wrong, I tend to look at, okay, where else is the money going, to which accounts, where is it coming from, around what time are the transactions happening, in what fashion. And quite often, I mean, most of the times it's just like, okay, just something shady, but not exactly sure. But the few times it results in where you do realize that, for example, a founder of the company is actually has like a personal stash that he put aside, and you know it's unlocked. It's just free money. He just minted. He just gave himself free money, and then is now selling it on the market, and then just dumping the price, and then making money at the cost of other investors. Things like this, or this system has a certain backdoor where on the surface level it is meant to be a legitimate business, but underneath it's actually a money laundering mechanism. So when I do find things like that, I tend to report it to the appropriate authorities. And sometimes I can help the police with investigation, give them more data if they need. And, for the purpose of, maybe we won't be able to give back lost money to, investors who may have received like financial harm, but at least to, put things more towards the right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I do sometimes.
I think this work or this skill set is so important because already Bitcoin is a huge black box for the majority of the people,
Mhm.
let alone tokenization or blockchain technology. I think we hear it, a lot of people hear it, they tend to understand a certain part of it, but don't realize how deep the rabbit hole really is. And I think people such as yourself that know the whole spectrum and are capable in showing based on technical data and information, user behavior and loopholes in systems is incredibly valuable. Um, Now you have the skill set and the capability to find these loopholes. How could you fix it? How could there be a standard that there are none of these loopholes? Do you think there will ever be a time when there will be no loopholes in systems that can be misused by people in the future? Does it need more regulation? What do you think is the answer there?
Um, I have also worked with a few government bodies and politicians to try to come up with regulations and different legal frameworks, right? But the fact of the matter is, regulations will never be able to catch up to all the different innovations, because regulations require consensus, requires discussion, requires voting and politicians and, voting interests and, which party alignment are you going for? So there's a lot of, I guess, human resources that go into that. But technical innovations, it just requires, even at the simplest, just one guy who knows what he's doing to just launch it. Especially on blockchain, you can launch any protocol, project, framework, engines, or anything that you want. You don't need permissions from anyone. So this is why I think regulatory frameworks will not be able to catch up as fast. But what that means is that in the frontier of things, so you know, when these bad actors are inventing new innovative ways to achieve whether illicit financial gains or illegal operations, there must also be good actors with equal skill sets who can detect this and then come up with new weapons and solutions to stop them from doing that, right? So sometimes I feel like it's like a game of you have two hands and that you want to be the hand on top and they just continue to do this, right? And it never ends. It's a never ending technological battlefield.
Mhm.
And it's really about who comes up with the next biggest, baddest, fastest weapon. And if you have this weapon, are you going to use it for good or for bad? Because you can do both, right? But quite often the end result is that overall industry and technology moves forward as a result. If there was no threat, if there was no bad actors, if there was no existential crisis within this industry, it would never evolve. Just like in the financial markets, right? When there is usually a whole like bubble burst or financial breakdown and Wall Street goes almost bankrupt and things, they learn as from that mistake and then they build something back in a stronger and a better fashion. And it's the same thing with technology, I think.
So give us an outlook. Where do you think is the technology going? Because I think slowly we have to wrap it up. We are almost at 1 hour already.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. I could talk with you for a few hours more, but I think for the first conversation that we have on in this format, uh,
hmm
we are good on the time frame. But give us as a last point an outlook. Where do you see the technology or whatever you feel like sharing in the short future, which means 2024 going?
hmm Um, I am beginning to see a lot of combinations of artificial intelligence and blockchain. So I think this can be quite interesting because blockchain is able to give you, like I said, all the traces of where the data is coming from. And AIs tend to suffer from where, it's a black box problem of AI, right? Where did the data come from? And, you have input and output, but what happened in between? Blockchain technology, I think, can, put some light on that. So I'm seeing this in development. But I think moving forward, it will be easier for people to interact with blockchain, right? So even if you have never used any, blockchain before, you have never had any crypto assets before, not only will you be able to trade and use different blockchain applications, but also I am seeing a lot of platforms where you can even launch your own, blockchains or even cryptocurrency without knowing a single line of code. So I think it is becoming a lot easier for people. And it's just like seeing how the internet started in the beginning, right? It was mainly for the tech punks, but now even grandpas know how to scroll Facebook because it is super easy. You don't need to learn how to code to give a like on Instagram. It's just
Mhm.
a tap. And I think the same level of user friendliness is finally coming to crypto, and it's about time because so far it's been too difficult. But yeah, I think that's where we're heading to.
Siwon, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Looking forward
Likewise.
to seeing you very soon. I enjoyed this conversation a lot, and thank you everybody for listening. If you made it that far, if you want to hear more from Siwon, he has a lot more to share. Then just let us know in the comments or send us a message, and we're looking forward to sharing more with you very soon. Have a good day, morning, night, evening, wherever you are. And take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Thanks for watching.